Tánaiste, obviously you can't talk about individual cases. I fully appreciate that. We had the tragic incident in City West last week regarding the alleged incident with a young girl. But long before that alleged incident, there were concerns in the local community about the City West site. The management of the accommodation centre had an incident log, and between 2023 and 2025 there were over 1,000 recorded incidents, including for some very serious things like indecent exposure, incidents of drug use, including heroin, theft, assaults on staff, assaults on other residents, things like this. This is by the people who are managing the actual centre. Do you think that locals, in light of all of that, have a right to be concerned about this centre in particular and things like this that they see unfolding around the country more broadly?
So local communities absolutely have a right to express concerns, absolutely have a right to be engaged with, absolutely have a right to be engaged with about what's happening in their community. Now that's very different, and you're differentiating too. That's very different from the lawlessness or the thuggery that we saw towards members of An Garda Síochána, which nobody would support, or no right-thinking person in our democracy should support. There's a broader issue here. Our migration numbers are too high, and the system is not built to deal with such large numbers. Immigration is a good thing in Ireland. We benefit from immigration. Look at our health service, look at so many parts of our economy. All of that is good, and there are many legal pathways for migration, work permits and the likes, and of course we have international obligations. But our migration numbers are too high, and I think that is really an issue that needs to be considered in a very serious way by government. I think one of the reasons they're so high is that there are too many people who come to this country and who are told they do not have a right to be here, and it is taking too long for them to be removed from the country. I welcome the work that the Minister for Justice has started around deportation flights, around improving processing times. I do think the Asylum Pact will also help in terms of secondary movements and being able to return people. But I think we have to be honest. I think we have to listen to the people of this country who I believe are saying to us, look, we used to live in a country where around 3,000 people sought international protection each year. That number has gone to in and around 20,000, sometimes a little above it, sometimes a little below it. That is a very, very significant increase, and it is too high.
Do you think that there should be more consideration of obviously we've seen the chartered deportation flights with Minister Jim O'Callaghan, but we know that there are a lot of incidents where people are given a deportation order and they don't leave the country, and then they're still there 6 months later.
If you have a deportation order and you don't have a right to be in the country, at that stage you should be removed from the country, or if there's some sort of logistical issue that's delaying you, you should be detained. Once you don't have a legal right and you've exhausted your avenues to exercise your right to be here, you can't just carry on as though that deportation order doesn't exist, and that's one of my frustrations, and I think one of the frustrations of people in this country.
That's what should happen, but we know that doesn't happen in many cases, and also we know that the state doesn't have exit checks, that there's no way of verifying after the fact, has this person left the country or has they not, and that's why we do see cases where 6 months later, a year later or longer, there's somebody who's still wandering around the country after they were supposedly deported.
So let's be honest with people, Ben. We're developing a new migration policy here. We're developing a migration system and somewhat doing it in real time. I'm very clear that immigration is a good thing. I'm very clear that our country benefits from immigration. I'm also very clear that immigration or migration into our country has to be lawful.
But I'm really sorry, Tánaiste, but I think
this is the challenge though with migration. When you get asked a question, politicians like me don't get an opportunity to Sure, perfect. No problem at all. But I just want to make the point that immigration is a good thing. We need to get to a system where people have a right, who have a right to be here, are told that quickly, and then can get on with their lives and contribute positively to our country and integrate. But where they don't have a right to be here, I'm saying to you very honestly, and I'm saying to the people of Ireland, we're not where we need to be. And what I am saying to you is the system needs to change. And the system needs to change in terms of, if you've exhausted your rights to be here, you should be deported quickly. And if you can't be deported for some logistical reason, you should at that moment be detained. And we also have to be honest with the Irish people, because I think what people are saying right across the country is that the numbers are simply too high. And I want to acknowledge that today.
Absolutely, but just on the specifics of that, because I think there's a lot of people who are very happy to hear you say that. Would that entail, for example, employing exit checks so that we can verify that somebody has left the state or that they haven't, so that then the enforcement part can then be followed up after the fact? Is that something that you would consider or think?
I think we should have an open mind on that. I don't want to write migration policy on the hoof here, but what I am saying is, as part of operating into the Migration and Asylum Pact, as part of recognising that we need to reform our systems, all of these things need to be considered. Irish people are compassionate. Irish people do see the benefit of immigration, so do I. But as I always say, Irish people also want common sense. They want rules. They want to know the rules are applied without fear or favour. And the credibility of the system depends on that.
Can I ask you also about Jamaica and Cuba?